Hello there, world. I was able to get my hands on a PlayStation 4 controller a bit early, a couple weeks before the system comes out, so I thought I'd give you guys a quick preview. I'll go ahead and post a full review once I've had an opportunity to put the controller through its paces. Now, as you can see, especially from this overhead view, there are some distinct differences between the Dualshock 3 from the PlayStation 3 and the Dualshock 4 from the upcoming PlayStation 4, especially around the handles, which was a pain point for me on the Dualshock 3. When I hold the Dualshock 3, you'll notice my pinky really doesn't have anything to grab onto because the handle's so darn short. After extended gameplay sessions, I would definitely start to feel some fatigue in my hands. Additionally, I was never a fan of the Dualshock 3's sticks. They were sloppy, and they were especially sloppy for first-person shooters. Another pain point I had with the Dualshock 3 was the trigger. Being curved inward towards the controller, during racing games, you'd put your finger on it and slowly it would just kind of slide off until you'd lose it and then have to readjust your finger. Just really never worked for me, nor did the button coding here. Overall, I mean, it's a solid piece of hardware, but definitely lacking, and it looks like they've really addressed a lot of those issues with this DualShock 4. Now, the first thing I noticed right when I picked it up was, if you look at the bottom of the bottom of the controller is actually, at first I thought it might be a rubberized grip, but when you pick it up, you actually see it's just another hard shell plastic, just like the top, except it does have a little bit of a texture to it, and it gives your hand something to really kind of grab onto. And grab onto it you can, especially with those longer handles. You'll see my pinky does have something to grab onto now, and overall, the feel of the controller is very comfortable, kind of akin to the Xbox 360 controller, if you're a fan of those. The sticks overall have a nice feel when you compare them to the DualShock 3. They're a little stiffer, kind of closer to what you would expect from a 360 controller, but not quite. Somewhere in between the 360 and the PS3's DualShock 3. Now, the trigger, as you can see, is made of a slightly different plastic. It's definitely something you can grip onto, and more importantly, the trigger is shaped like a traditional trigger, outward away from the controller, and when you plant your finger, it really does latch onto it, and you don't slip off of it, which is really nice. Standard charging port on the top of the controller, mini USB, just like the previous generation. Of course, that big LED light that you can make come on with the PlayStation button in the middle. Of course, don't have a system to latch onto it yet. Most interesting, of course, is the touchpad right here in the center of the controller. Had no idea, but this is actually a button. And when you press down on it, there is a little bit of an action there. And it's a nice, comfortable action. It'll be interesting to see how developers utilize it. I wonder if it'll be similar to the touchpad on the back of the PlayStation Vita. Of course, standard 4 buttons on the front, 4 buttons on the top, 2 buttons inside on the thumbstick. Overall, these buttons actually feel a lot better than they did on the PlayStation 3. The DualShock 3, they have an inherent up and down sloppiness to the stick that I never really cared for, and that has been rectified on these sticks. They do not go up and down. They just have that downward motion for a quick push. And of course, it has the start button and the share button. As far as my experiences with this controller go, I really don't like these buttons. They're sloppy, they're mushy, and they're really, really, really close to the body of the controller. It's really hard to feel them out. So if there's ever any gameplay elements associated with it, that could really be a deal breaker because they are not comfortable. Now, of course, the share button over on this side will never be with gameplay. That'll be OS. But yeah, this button over here, if there's anything ever that you need to do with it from a game, might be something. And then, of course, on the bottom we do have the port for the headphone jack. It'll be interesting to see how comfortable those headsets are. So overall, it's a good, solid piece of hardware. It's that kind of that build quality that you really expect from Sony. Really nice and hefty. Overall, the D-pad is very responsive in 4 directions, but again, those diagonals are not going to be comfortable for things like traditional fighting games. You might want to seek something else out. Of course, nothing new. The DualShock 3 had the same problem, as does most modern controllers. Little heavier than the DualShock 3, but that's to be expected. There's a lot more hardware in here. And yeah, once the system comes out, I'll be posting a full review of the controller as well as the system.